I have with me here Ms. Aeti Abdullah, previous country director of EducationUSA and also current, education advocacy manager for the Learning Recovery Initiative at Yayasan Hasanah. Right now, as we can see, Ms. Aeti right here has some merch. Totally not an Asian tourist, but a recent graduate of the Harvard Graduate School of Education. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Congratulations on graduating from Harvard's Graduate School of Education. That's an incredible achievement. How do you feel?
It has been so surreal. I mean, it is a short program. It's a 1-year program. And I think it was probably the quickest, fastest 1 year, most intense 1 year of my life. But it has been so great. I've met so many amazing professors, amazing friends, and I think some of them are like my lifelong friends now.
Wow.
And this is one of the most transformative years of my life.
Wow.
Maybe.
When you say transformative years right there, so then I guess what is it that in your mind, right? When you think of the experience that you had right there and you kind of play it back, sort of as a flashback deal right there, what would you first describe as one of the most transformative experiences that you had while you were there?
Okay. So I think might probably be a bit biased towards US education because I've been working in the field of US higher ed for a while now. But I feel like being in the US, doing my master's degree here is there, not just you don't just go to classes, write some papers, and that's it. You really do hands-on, get your hands dirty and really do the work. One of the things that I did with my group back at Harvard was we wrote a policy paper for ASEAN Secretariat on Cambodia urban rural divide. So we're working with real life clients, and I remember second month I was there, one of our professors wrote a support letter for us to attend the UN General Assembly event. It's a side event, but it's still that was my first time in the UN HQ in New York.
Wow, okay.
So I'm that is really you don't get that elsewhere. So yeah.
Yeah.
So being a Harvard student also gets places, which I'm very, 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 very grateful for. Yeah.
Oh, that definitely sounds, incredible. Well, you've had a very interesting journey leading up your Harvard Master's in Education. Well, you completed your education, if I'm not wrong, at UT Mara, where you studied mass communications. And then there was a whole long journey along the way right there. I mean, if we simply look right here, you've got, let's see, the communications executive, SCOME, you work for University of Malaya, you work for British Council, and eventually for EducationUSA, along the way.
Yeah, so if I can be honest with you, I decided to study mass communication for my undergrad is because I didn't want to do really hard course, basically, because my elder brother at the time, he did engineering and he ended up hating it. So my mom was like, okay, you can choose whatever you want to do. And I know I like working with people. And at the time, I really loved the Devil Wears Prada movie. So I really want to work for a magazine. I want to be a writer and all that.
Yeah.
That's why I studied mass comm.
Oh.
And I actually majored in publishing. And I ended up, I did intern at magazine, fashion magazine. And I think I ended up not liking it. Try it out and then you see if you like it or not. But I met some amazing people when I was there. And then I stayed in communication. So I worked for SCOME as their group comms executive. And then I somehow got myself accidentally into education. Yes. Yes. I think 10 years ago, if you were to ask me if I see myself working in education, I would maybe say not.
Yeah.
Because I was a scholarship student back in UiTM, so I received a JPA scholarship.
Oh, nice.
So I had to serve my bond with the government. So it's just a 1-year bond that I did. and I worked at University of Malaya as the international relations officer. And I think that's like how I got into education by accident, but I ended up loving it because I feel like working in education gives you like sense of purpose. Like I really wake up looking forward going to my job to do. Yes, exactly.
Wow.
And after being with then I worked at British Council. And after British Council, I proceeded to the US Embassy as a country coordinator for EducationUSA. But it was actually a little bit like I got imposter syndrome because obviously I didn't study in the States. And I was responsible in promoting US higher ed to Malaysians, right? But that is probably one of the best jobs I've been in.
Oh, yeah.
One of the best teams ever, public affairs at US Embassy. Love you guys. Yeah, best friends with them, with some of my colleagues there. After US Embassy, I worked for University of Rochester, which is a university in upstate New York. But I was based in Malaysia, so I did international student recruitment and partnership for Southeast Asia for the university. Yeah, so it's a little bit like,
from the devil wears Prada over to education.
Yeah, I think that's how you discover things about yourself, right? Like you're supposed to just like try everything and
enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey.
Like eat, pray, love kind of thing.
Yes, trust the process. And, you're not supposed to know what you like right away. I think it will be kind of boring if that's the case.
Right.
So I think that's how life is. It's a long journey, and then like you learn things about yourself along the way.
And somehow or another, the journey of fate like brought you all the way to Harvard. So
yes, exactly.
There we go.
Like I would never have thought. Like I really come from like humble beginnings. Middle-income family. My mom was a single mom. I wanted to study abroad 10 years ago when I first graduated out of undergrad. But I didn't get any scholarship back then, and it's just out of the questions to go abroad with like pharma is like not an option at all. So I remember putting that plan in the back burner for a while. I started working, and Alhamdulillah, for Harvard, I got Yayasan Hasanah scholarship.
Wow. Okay. Out of curiosity.
Yes.
Well, what was your childhood like actually? I mean, were your parents like strict or anything? Or was it kind of like more like laissez-faire, you can do like what it is that you want?
Yeah, I think it's like in the middle. I grew up in Kemaman, Terengganu, up until I was 11, 12. Then we moved to KL. So if people ask me where I'm from, I always say Terengganu because I feel like that's where I'm from. Not the cushiest childhood, but like I know my mom, she did her best to give us the education that we need. All we need to study hard and
wow.
Yeah, and we went to public school. I am very lucky in a sense that public school, it ranges right from you can get a very good quality education or it's just the other way around. But I remember in Kemaman, I went to SK Sultan Ismail, and I feel like that's like one of the best schools in the state. And it's just a luck, my luck to be in that school, right? And then when we moved to KL, I went to SMK Aminuddin Baki, also one of the best school in the country at that time. I don't know about now, but I really was so still. Yeah, no, I think it's still, but I just don't keep track of the ranking because ranking is not everything. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just very, very lucky to be in the public education system with good quality education.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So as you've transitioned over from I guess like your different educational experiences to Harvard, have there been any sort of like surprises that you've encountered like along the way?
Yeah, I mean, not too much of a surprise because I've been like advocating for US higher education even before I went to the US for education.
So you kind of like knew already like beforehand?
Because before that, when I was with the US Embassy with EducationUSA, I used to do all those like pre-departure orientation. So I've been through all those information and that really prepped myself before I went for my own education.
That's so interesting because like you hadn't actually experienced US higher education, but at the same time you knew about US higher education.
So I know what to expect, but experiencing it yourself altogether is obviously different things. Knowing about it and experiencing it is different.
Was there like a significant difference between, you know, what you were saying in those sessions right there and what you eventually ended up experiencing when you were at Harvard?
It was actually pretty on par with what I've been, before. And thank God, I don't want to be like, oh,
no false advertising.
No false advertising.
No.
Going there, experiencing it because they really encourage you to speak up. Something that I think our education system should do more, like allowing the students to, share and do the talking and like really have that two-way communication in classroom. I think really helps me as a student. I think one of the first things they talk about during our first few days at Harvard is having this psychological safety in classroom. And they really want to foster that in order for people to be able to share their views, share their thoughts and opinions. So I think that is something that we can also practice in our own classroom. Because I think we have a lot of potential, but sometimes maybe that can also help communication skills. By the way,
for sure. And so when you kind of went off to Harvard then, so you decided to specifically study education.
Yeah.
So then, was that something that you had been thinking about for a very long time, even while you were, in your roles as EducationUSA country coordinator and stuff of that nature right there?
Yeah, so I think the reason why I decided to do my master's in education is actually because I know for a fact that I want to stay in education. But I really love this field because, like I mentioned, it really gives me that sense of purpose. Having that formal qualification and formal education on education, I think really helps me. Sometimes I know things, but this education at Harvard gives me the language, the theory of what happens behind, some phenomena, whatever. But it gives me the language to talk about it better, to discuss about it, and have a discourse about education.
Fascinating. And so, when you went off to study education then, what would you say were some of your formative experiences while you were at Harvard?
Having that hands-on experience, I went to a lot of conferences. I think students are encouraged to take part in those conferences or events and meeting other students, other researchers, other practitioners really helped me get better understanding as compared to just reading it from your laptop, from your book, from the slides, right? You learn about it, but then you get to speak to people who actually do things on the ground.
Right.
Helpful for me. And it's just I learned in Harvard, I'm not, how do I put it? I don't just learn from the professors, the lecturers there, but also from all my colleagues, all my classmates, my friends, because it's just amazing, the range of experiences, the range of background, people you meet there. And it's just, I think that is also one of the things that I learned from when I was at Harvard.
Yes.
And I have friends from all over the world now. In education. So.
When you think about those experiences right there, what were some things that maybe you found really surprising when you were, in school and, learning from some of these superstars out there in your school?
First, I was feeling a little bit intimidated. I have this imposter syndrome. Do I belong here? It's just, did they make a mistake and meeting me here? But everyone was being so open and so welcoming of one another. And it's just learning about, I went there with few questions about Malaysian education system already at the back of my mind, and learning how other countries are tackling those same or similar problems, or how they have done it. I think that's also very, very, not to say surprising, but I didn't expect to learn that way too. I know that I'm going to have like world-class education in the classroom, but it's just like the range of learning, different modalities of learning that I've had in Harvard was really amazing.
Wow.
And I didn't just, there's just too many opportunities that you just have to pick and choose because it's so easy to get overwhelmed or to feel for all because you obviously you can't join everything. You can't do everything at the same time, right? But I also took the opportunity to go to events or attend class at other schools in Harvard, like the Harvard Kennedy School. And then I also take a class with the undergrads at Harvard College. And some of my friends, they did cross-register in MIT. So that was something that I didn't know that I could do. So that was, a good surprise, I would say. Like if I know earlier, I probably would have done my planning better.
MIT PhD.
Yeah. Oh my God, PhD, like that's another whole journey. Like I
to be continued.
Yeah, to be continued. Like to be maybe in a few years. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that. So you came to Harvard with some experience with education so far, and perhaps you had some questions that maybe were on your mind even as you thought about the Malaysian education system. So with that in mind, I'd like to maybe transition to a discussion of that education system in the country in which we live right here.
Yeah.
You are currently one of the most qualified people in this entire country to speak about education. Congratulations again. But going back to that time when you were at Harvard, what were some questions that you tried to explore about education and how do they relate to Malaysia as a whole?
I think one of the things that I'm very interested about is politics. But like before, I'm of the opinion that education shouldn't be politicized, or politics shouldn't be mixed together with education.
Right.
I took politics and education class with Americ Davis in Harvard, and it just blew my mind how interconnected politics with education. Like it gives me like a whole understanding of how it works. You don't just think about education as like transferring of knowledge from the teacher to students. Like it made me think like, okay, what is the purpose of education in Malaysia? Who set the purpose? Like what is the objective? Like if there's any gap or disparities, is that intentional? Is that not intentional? Is that a byproduct of something? So it makes me like some of them answered my questions, but some of them makes me have more questions. But to be fair, like now I'm working very closely with Malaysian education system. I know that the Ministry of Education, like they are working on a lot of things that I, as a public before, I didn't know. But now I have like more information about what has been done, what are they working on. I think, I have some hope, not some hope, I have hope in our education system. But like also being a mom, right? I do want to see our education system to be improved. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and
Congratulations! You must be super proud of your parents.
Yeah, so that's another story I'm gonna tell later. Like I went along, and my daughter and my husband were here in Malaysia, so that was a very, very, very tough time for me as well. But that's okay. Let's put that aside first. But I do want to see the kids in Malaysia to receive quality education, and I think that starts with empowering our educators with the knowledge and the tools they need and the resources they need. So,
All right, cool. So I guess kind of briefly touching on like the idea of say politics and education. Of course, like maybe there is a purpose or like some sort of idea right there. Some people could say that it's for developing human resources. Some people could say that it's for nation building and various other things of that nature there. Sure. And so when you kind of think about education right now? So how do you feel that, well, going off to the US and maybe even your experiences working in these different roles related to education have changed your view of what an ideal education should look like for people of Malaysia?
Yeah, I think education should empower people to be the better version of themselves. I don't know if you know Paulo Freire.
Yeah, banking model of education.
Yeah, and also like pedagogy of the oppressed. So that's like a little bit radical view of education. But like I feel that in the world, not in Malaysia, but like in the world, there are a few ways of how education works. Like education can be a tool to produce the society to fit in the current society, the status quo.
Mhm.
And the other side of the coin is education should empower you to question status quo.
Mhm.
So which one do you go out, right? And I think for me, like I would rather like for example, myself, my daughter to be the one like and empowered to question when there is something wrong and not just
Mhm.
the status quo. That's another discussion altogether. But yeah.
All right, cool. So you currently have a role as education advocacy manager for, I think, the Learning Recovery Initiative at Yayasan Hasanah. So then, as far as I know, so that relates to this idea of educational justice and equitable opportunity. So then that's something that you also do mention a little bit on your LinkedIn profile. So then maybe will you explain a little bit about, well, how your role is kind of related to some of these things as well?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I am a product of public education system, and I'm very grateful that I went to good schools, and I feel like the opportunities that have been given to me should be given to everyone, to all Malaysians. There should be no two ways about it. And this program, this initiative that we're working on right now is actually to provide intervention for pemulihan students. It's basically foundational learning to ensure that all kids in Malaysia know how to read, write, and for numeracy as well. So, they're not left behind when it comes to education. And also another part of the program is we want to help students like Form 5 students to do better in their SPM so they can get the certificate, and that, because having a SPM certificate is a must here. And
Yes.
as you can see, last year there are a huge number of students who didn't even get certificates.
It's like more than 10,000 didn't even show up, right?
And some of them didn't even show up, so we want to make sure that is something that we can enumerate.
Wow.
It fits, and these kids will have a good chance in the future. So I'm really, really, really grateful to be part of that, because now I feel like I'm working on something like really like nation building, like helping to the betterment of education in Malaysia. But it also feels very, very high stake. It's like a very big responsibility, and hopefully we can, the project will be a success. We are working with a number of CSOs, other universities to make this happen.
All right, cool. So maybe Aeti, could you tell me a little bit about Yayasan Hasanah, like what it aims to do, and well, how your role kind of like plays in the foundation as well?
So Yayasan Hasanah is an impact focused foundation of Hassana, and we have four pillars that we work on in Yayasan Hasanah, which is education, community development, environment, culture, and arts. So I am within the education pillar. So we provide grants, we provide initiatives in those four pillars within Malaysia. So like right now, I am helping working on this initiative, but we also have other education programs that we're working on, such as learning loss, mental health, and lots more.
Wow.
I didn't know before this, but like it's something that I was like, okay, this is such a cool organization to work with.
Wow. Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah. If I can also add, like they provide grants for all these four pillars. So if anyone working on good initiatives on any of these four pillars, you can ask for one or send your application to these ones.
Amazing. Cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So, even prior to your current role at Yayasan Hasanah, so you were working on a range of different initiatives, and in particular, while you are at Harvard, you were working as a diversity, equity, and inclusion community building intern. So I want to kind of touch on that idea of, well, educational justice, as it were. You did mention that one of the things important to you is, well, making sure that people could have the opportunities that you did have along the way. So, in your mind, well, why is that important to you? Why is it important that we have diverse classrooms and that we can empower a wide range of different people within Malaysia?
I think diversity is what makes us Malaysians, though. Like, I don't know, lately there's a lot of built by social media, people blaming each other and all that. But I think that, Malaysians, we are diverse in nature, and I think we need to empower each other because I think that's just in our DNA. And I think my first experience with DI was not at Harvard. It was actually back in 2016 with British Council. So I think I was introduced of the concept of DEI back then. And I think the work that I did with British Council and some parts in USMC helped inform me from the work that I do at Harvard, which is a community building, bridging the connections between international students and domestic students within Harvard Graduate School of Education. And I think things are better when you work with each other, with people who are different than you, have different perspective. Is when when you celebrate that differences, that you actually can become better.
Right. Rather than kind of try to blame one another or go out there, write mean comments.
I know some things are very deep rooted or seated in certain communities, but I just why can't we just get them?
Yeah. And so, I mean, if we think about that in the context of something maybe mildly controversial, but it's technically already settled by a court case right there. For example, you see people talk about vernacular education, about how you should outlaw that, and a range of different things along the way. Maybe not getting too deeply into that, but when you look at the education system of Malaysia as a whole, right? So what are your thoughts on it? Are we doing okay? Is it horrible? Is it actually good, but then people have a bad rap of it? Or how do you feel about Malaysia's education system in general?
So this is just my opinion. It doesn't really, reflect my employers or whatever, but I hope, this shouldn't be a controversial take. I think we can do better. And I think we are on our way to be better. And I feel we have to have better public education system because I think there's some distrust in the public education system as it is now. I can't really point where the distrust is coming from. But I remember when I was a kid in primary school, we have I have Chinese friends, I have Indian friends, and now I think it's hard to see that diverse environment in public schools anymore. Maybe it's just very just around my environment, but that's how I see it now. But I hope that we can have a better quality education so that everyone can be in the same space, and that's how you work religion's identity.
Right. Yeah. Well, there are a lot of ways in which this trust I've seen kind of manifest out there. For example, nowadays a lot of parents are sending their kids to international schools, for example, or they are trying to get their kids into say private schools and stuff of that nature. Obviously that costs money, right? So then that creates a sort of situation where some people are thinking of a pay to play type system to kind of move away from that public education system. But so when you think about the current state of the public education system, do you feel that there are some specific things that we can do to improve?
Like I mentioned earlier, the most important thing that we have to do first is not the cosmetics, but actually to empower the educators, the teachers to, to have the knowledge, the tools, the resources that they need to become, good teachers. Because I think as of now, some teachers, like most teachers are overburdened with a lot of different responsibilities, so they're not allowed to 100% focus on the teaching themselves. So I think like what we can do first is to empower and help our educators to be the best version of themselves. I think once you empower, once you invest in educators, then you start having good schools because you have good teachers. And it's just like a snowball effect. So when you have a good school, people have more trust to send to public schools. So I think investing in teachers and the manpower of the school is the best starting point to have more robust education system. But I know that means we're doing that because now I'm working with them, so I have like insider information. It's just I think sometimes it is probably not well communicated. Maybe people don't know what they're currently doing, or it hasn't been reflected in the outcome yet. Because education is a long game. You don't do, an intervention today and see the result next month.
I see.
It's a long, you probably do something initiative today and then see the outcome. Maybe next year, that's considered quick already. It's like a long game, and you have to have that, patience to see that. Yeah, and I hope we will see that.
Well, as you kind of look at what our education ministry is doing like right now, do you feel that there are some encouraging signs going forward? And if there are, then maybe what might all those signs be?
This initiative that I'm working on now, they are really trying to do intervention to kids who are at the very behind within the class, and empowering teachers and giving capacity building to the students. And I have high hopes in our education system, but I think we also need to really focus on things that can help our teachers.
What are some of the most critical things that you think should be addressed, apart from say having good teachers, right? Are there some other things that we should be thinking about as well?
I think looking at other Southeast Asian countries, always look at Scandinavian countries to learn more about education, but our context is different than those countries. And I don't know if you know about this, but Vietnam is way better. Yeah, and also in CPLM. So I think we should look at those countries and see what we can do and copy to improve our own education system. Because obviously it's not just having good teachers, right? And having good infrastructure is important. Having trust from parents are important. Having good partnership between the school and parents is also important. But I think we're still not there yet. I'm thinking of Vietnam because they're doing a lot of improvement in their own education systems. They're looking up to from that. So it's a lot of things that we can do, but how do we go about it? Because you cannot copy the method from maybe you can copy but adapt a little bit, but it's different, right? Because for example, Western countries, they probably are more, the parents, they do their own learning or educating their kids as well. But some places maybe, but some of us may think that education is the school's role, rather than it's learning happening at home.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. And so, when you think of the lessons that you learned from Harvard, there are some interesting case studies, for example, Indonesia's Nadiem Makarim, Harvard alum as well, brought forth the Merdeka Belajar system. Then Singapore, you have like what? Like Sarman Shanmugaratnam, Harvard MPA, Lawrence Wong, Harvard MPA, and like basically a whole range of like different people, Harvard everywhere type thing right there. And you think also about like Vietnam and all those other case studies that are kind of like
Yeah.
relevant towards, well, how we can improve, iterate upon, and advance our education system. What do you think are some key lessons that the Malaysian education system should take into consideration?
You say I attended this conference in Miami on comparative international education, and I did join a session on Merdeka Belajar, the education reform in Indonesia. And I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. Why aren't we doing this?
I see.
So when I came home and I started this job and I really working with MOE, then I know we are actually doing those things. Yeah, we are, doing a lot of intervention in schools, but I think we probably should do a better job at reporting it. Because I think one thing that I like about the medical bladder program is like the scorecard element of it, like how schools can assess how they're doing and how they can learn from schools around there, whatever, and learn from each other. And that is something our government has already been doing, but it's just, I think, we should do better at like informing that to people and like letting people know, like really like publicize what they are currently doing. Because like I, as like a public, public member of society, I didn't know like, we have done all that. I was like, okay, I'm gonna jot down all these notes and like go back to it and try to like implement this and this and that.
Mine was already done.
What?
Mine was already done.
Yeah, it's like in process. So like maybe we should have to like assess how good we're doing and like how we can improve what we are already doing if that doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that the Bending Bamboo Shoots report released by the World Bank mentioned was that Malaysia's education blueprint, amazing, but we lack in implementation. Yeah. So then when you think about the gap right there between plans and implementation, we are at a phase where the education ministry is seeking out recommendations right now for, I don't know whether it's going to be called the Malaysian Education Blueprint, but there's going to be another one from 2026 until 2036 right there in the days ahead.
Yeah. I think, first of all, like we can have all this amazing policy paper or blueprint or recommendations, but like you say, it is the implementation part that is difficult to do, right? You have to get buy-ins from so many different players in the ecosystem to make it happen, to actually see results from that amazing book or amazing blueprint that you have. So I think like for me, like first of all, like it needs to be effective, like the upcoming one, it needs to be effective. It needs to have political visibility because you can come out with these amazing things, but if it's not feasible, many ways are including politically visible, you can't really, execute it as a plan, right? But if I can be hopeful, like I really want equitable education reforms or policies and like really bring together Malaysians and not divide us even more. I think it is very important for us to have like a very united future, in the future. So I think the new ones would promote that or foster that. Yeah. And I think we also have to see like when it comes to education, what have been lacking when it comes to the MEB, the previous MEB, and how we can do better and how we should fix that in the upcoming one.
I see. Cool. So thank you for that. I'd like to touch on something that, well, you mentioned earlier, but we didn't really expand so much upon. So we face a problem of implementation, and clearly people are needed to implement along the way. So a key link in that area is the teacher, of course, the person who is constantly in the classroom, dedicating time, effort, energy, the human interaction necessary to cultivate a generation of educated Malaysian students who can contribute positively towards our society. And so when we think about training up this new generation of teachers, the people who are able to empower the next generation, what are some things that we should think about as we are trying to do that?
I think we should promote the teacher profession as a highly regarded profession. I think sometimes people have this notion of like, oh, you can do anything else, you teach. But how can you leave like the future of the next generation or to someone that is just like there to teach just because they can't do anything else? I think, having like a very positive image of the profession itself is very important. It has to be like highly regarded as any other like professions should. So having and recruit the right talent, I think. Yeah. But I know it's easier said than done because we don't have enough teachers and we don't have enough people applying for this. So it is something that we really have to look into, like really having a good, Olapis for the next generation of teachers.
So, Aeti,
Yes.
as someone who actually went on to study a graduate degree in education, like huge respect for that decision right there. And I'm wondering though, do you have a sort of like long-term vision for your role in educational advocacy? Like, are we going to see Education Minister Aeti Abdullah soon? Like, right? And I know that you didn't say no earlier, so I'm looking forward to Education Minister.
Never.
Never say never. All right. Now, what do you see as your long-term vision for education in Malaysia?
For myself in the education system.
Mhm.
Okay. I think for me, like I mentioned, this is where I'm going to be forever. I think, because I really love this field. I want to be in this field. And for me, I think in the long run, what I'm doing now is like I'm always in a constant learning mode.
Mhm.
I think even right now, it is a little bit different. The work that I do now is different from what I did before. So I am just like becoming a sponge and like learning every day. Yes, yeah. Because for your information, previously my work is mostly international higher ed. So this is something really new for me. But having this opportunity really gives me a bigger view of education. Um, so I don't know. I want to say that in 5 years, I probably
Become education minister.
no. I have to prepare myself more to become that. That is a huge responsibility. What I want to do is have my
Shout out Minister Fadila.
yes, like it is a huge task. But I do want to work on my own education initiative to help people assess more information about study abroad because I think that is also my passion. I've done a lot of that in my previous work, and I want to see more Malaysians, especially from the public education system, to dream big and to have the resources that they need to be able to do that. Because I didn't have that opportunity or resources before when I was in school, right? But yeah, I want to start something initiative on that.
Amazing. Cool. Thank you for that. So, moving forward, then, what kinds of advice would you give directly future education minister to present education minister? So, what kinds of advice would you potentially give, drawing on your lessons from Harvard, to the education minister or to civil society at large about education?
I don't think it is my place to give advice, but
Just lessons, maybe.
yes, but I feel like we should give the same opportunity to all Asian kids out there. It shouldn't matter what race they are, what color skin they are. They should, or even where they are located, they should be getting quality education, like the same education opportunity, because that's how you reduce that achievement gap, right? If you give the right education, the same quality of education to all kids everywhere, then you won't have that disparity of gap so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, future education is Oh, you never know. You never know. You never
Oh
know.
my God.
Ladies and gentlemen, Aeti Abdullah, recent graduate of the Masters of Education from Harvard University. Aeti, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on this podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Victor. And if I may, I want to, extend to everyone, if you are interested in studying at HUTC or Harvard Graduate School of Education, the application is now open. So if you have any questions at all about applying, please let me know. Reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me. I will give my email to Victor.
Yep.
And yeah, because it is one of the best years of my life, and I think everyone should should have the same experience. More relationship with Harvard.
Okay, all right. So thank you so much, and it was a pleasure. And I hope that your dreams will come true right there. Education Minister. All right.